All right. Hello and welcome back to another exciting episode of the Apatic webcast. We are about to close things down here for the school year, of course, and I am privileged and honored to have another esteemed guest here, expert on a wonderful app-related topic, digital storytelling. So my colleague here, Stace Carter, actually a higher ed gentleman, teaches at University of Virginia, and I'll let him take it away and lead us through some great ideas and concepts that we're all looking forward to hearing. And he just dropped out. Hopefully he'll be right back and we can see what happens there. And there we are. Stacy, you back?
I am. Sorry about that.
That's okay. That's okay. That happens. No worries. So without further ado, Stace, I'll turn it over to you and we'll go from there. Stace, are you there?
I am. Yes. Are you getting me now?
Yes, we are. We're all set. We're all set here.
All right. Fingers crossed. Bandwidth holds. All right. Should we start?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, go right into it.
All right. Great. Okay. Well, all right. Thanks, Mike. Sorry for that little stuttering on my internet connection there at the beginning. But thanks for having me. What we're going to talk about today is kind of a combination of things that I've done in digital storytelling. So I have given this talk a lot to undergraduate classes that are making the move from paper reports to digital storytelling at the University of Virginia, and we've also talked a lot about this a lot in PD sessions with teachers that are interested in kind of bringing this into their classroom. So what I'm going to do is kind of a combination of those things. We're going to talk about sorry, my screen sharing just went weird, but we'll get that fixed here. This in your classroom and components of this, the important things that you can share with your students to make it, I don't know, a more effective experience for starters. So to get right into it, what is digital storytelling? Basically, this could be anything from a blog post that contains still images. Yes.
The slides are not coming through. Let's try that again. They were there for a second and then it.
Oh, sorry about that.
All right.
Try that one more time. Try this one more time. How are we doing there?
Now we're at what's a digital story. We're on that slide, so I think we're good.
Exactly. Okay. So let's start with that. So first of all, defining what we're doing and kind of why we're doing it, right? What is a digital story and why should I use digital storytelling in my classroom? There's a couple of things to think about with this. First of all, defining what a digital story is. It could be a video, it could be a piece of audio, it could be a combination of these things, it could be still images with audio. There's a number of different ways to approach this, right? But why are we doing it? That's really, we'll get more into the deliverables on digital storytelling, and let's talk about why we're doing it first. So one of the great resources out there is in Berkeley, California, there's actually a Center for Digital Storytelling, that has enumerated a lot of the reasons that you'd want to use this either in the classroom or just in life as an educational tool. I've bulleted some of those here: personal reflection and growth, education, outreach, community building, policy advocacy, and research and evaluation. And by the way, I will not be reading slides to you this entire time, but I think this is an important thing to start out with. Ultimately, I think that digital storytelling is an incredibly effective tool in moving the classroom towards a higher level of discourse and education, right? So I'm referencing the SAMR model here from Dr. Pentadura. And what we're doing with digital storytelling is hopefully not just replacing a paper report with a video report, right? I would argue that this moves us kind of directly to the redefinition of how a report can be done or how learning happens in the classroom. And as we move through some examples, we'll kind of talk about that happens. In my experience, the primary reasons for this, or justifications to call this a redefinition, is that we're moving our students not only from just kind of writing about something, but deeper into the research stage, and ultimately engaging them with primary sources in a way that never happens just kind of in a library or classroom environment. So we'll see some examples of that as we move through. I've got a little sentence here that I came up with a couple of minutes ago. I think what we're doing with digital storytelling is developing and reinforcing core literacy skills while meeting the students where they are, because a lot of the video and multimedia that we're creating when we're doing this is the language that our students are using every day, and so I think it gives them an insight as they're creating this material to better vet the material that's coming at them, to give them a greater literacy for 21st century communication. And so to start off with that, what I want to do is I'm going to move over to the browser here, and I want to play you a segment of a story that one of my classrooms did, what's called the Virginia Food Heritage Project. So I'm just going to play this for a minute and give you an idea of our students' experience.
Before modern refrigeration, people relied on ice houses to keep food and drink cool during the summer. According to Michael Ulmer's book, Kitchens, Smokehouses, and Privies, Virginia probably had more ice houses than any other colony in North America. George Washington even had his own ice house advisor, and our own Thomas Jefferson was infatuated with this ice house at Monticello. In the United States, the earliest reference to harvesting and saving ice is in 1665 in Virginia, but it wasn't until about the 1830s that ordinary people began using harvested ice for food preservation.
There was a hole in the ground, and it had a trap left with it, over the top. And the ice was down in the ground. And we had a pond that the ice got real cold. We would break that ice and put a layer of straw, a layer of ice, a layer of straw, a layer of ice, until it got up to the top. The ice had to get a certain amount thick before they break it and put it in, and it lasted all the summer. Right there in that, under that ground, ice was there from the winter all the summer.
And she said they would take, you know, the meat that they wanted down there, all of the liquids that they, you know, wanted, and she never told me how they stored the wine, but she said in this ice house, everything was preserved.
As early as 1803, farm journals published articles giving advice on how to construct ice houses. In practice, the structures came in many shapes and sizes. They were made of wood, stone, or brick, were built underground, above ground, or as combinations of the two. The winter work was as crucial as any summer harvesting, and cutting and hauling ice was a regular winter chore. In the winter, when a nearby pond would freeze over with ice several inches thick, it was ready to harvest.
Back there, you had to think about, I need this tool, or I want to do this, or how am I going to do it? When things are just handed to you, you lose that ability to think. How? what do I do? It was a time, I believe, that God taught us to use this brain.
So that's pretty cool, huh? Let's go back to the keynote deck here. And I think what I really like about that particular piece and that particular project with our students was that it really got them out into the community, and you can see from the students' narration and the resulting video that it's based around that there was a lot of research done in diagrams, blueprints, local history, national history. And again, my favorite part of that is how the students were able to get out into the community, make connections there, and do that primary source research that is just so valuable. So a few of the things we're going to talk about today, since this is an Apatic podcast, what we're going to talk about is resources in software and applications. We're also going to talk about hardware resources. The video that you just saw was filmed on a phone. But you may have noticed that there was also a microphone that was on the subject for kind of increased audio quality, which is a very helpful thing. We'll talk about how to do that. And then we're going to talk about how to find places and support for resources regardless of your institution or situation. So one of the things I want to start out with is we did a workshop at National Public Radio up in Washington, D.C. a few years ago, and part of that I think is one of our takeaways was a really helpful way of thinking about these stories. At NPR, they break down their stories in terms of character, narration, scenes, ambience, and actualities to kind of relate those items back to what you were hearing just a few minutes ago in that student piece. We had a character and a scene. Basically, our characters were our subjects, the scenes where they were in Virginia, and trying to give a sense of that. There was student narration. Their actualities, they didn't really have so many, but actualities are something we would consider live recording. So it could be pictures or just sound, background sound, or in that piece they might have used the sound of chipping ice as an actuality. But these are just some kind of ways of thinking about constructing your digital story that can be helpful for you to build a checklist of what are the things I need to make this a full story. Ultimately, when you get into that interview situation, and we'll talk about getting there in a minute, it's important to ask the subject for what you want. So what you didn't hear in that student piece was the prompting questions that the students were giving to those subjects. Tell me about the history of ice in refrigeration in your life, or how has your life changed since the advent of refrigeration? So they asked some general questions, and then they started to focus those questions and make them more personal to help construct a story. And the biggest question you can ask one of your subjects, of course, is tell me your story, right? Because that's part of the research that you're doing as a student in your digital storytelling, and that's where a lot of the learning is going to happen. So moving from that, what we're going to talk about right now is how to capture these, right? Kind of the technical nitty-gritty and how to capture them effectively. So there's a lot of kind of first-time problems that people run into when they start this, and there's some learning that needs to happen even before the process begins, right? What I encourage people to do is figure out their equipment and their software, what apps they want to use, and get to know them a little bit before you begin to engage your subjects in this. That way you just make the interview process a lot smoother. Everybody walks away happier, and it's a more effective process. So the first example I always give is, I'm sure, Mike, you've taken this picture, I've taken this picture. I don't know a person with an iPhone that hasn't taken this picture. And the problem there, it's pretty obvious. We know there are people there, we just can't see their faces. So learning how to work with light when you're capturing a visual story is a really important thing. And so one of the things we do in our exercises at UVA is we send our students around the room. You can see there's a student with a flip cam here. And finding a good source of light. This is just a window at the side of the library. And what a difference that can make, right? So thanks to those students for allowing me to use that picture over and over again. Another thing that we like to consider is that sound is half the picture. Everybody will watch a video, or I should say a video with bad video. But if the sound isn't great, people tend to tune out pretty quickly. And you'll notice that I mentioned that our students in that previous piece had used a lavalier microphone to capture more effective sound. Another thing that's really important about this aspect of it is when you get to an environment, and you can probably hear some traffic behind me, I'm sitting out in the yard, is getting an idea of what is happening in that environment and can you improve it. So what we encourage our students to do is to just go to their location, close their eyes for 30 seconds, think about what they hear, and will that either interfere with the story they're trying to produce, or will it enhance that story, right? Back to the NPR anatomy of a story, actualities, they can be really helpful, but if you've got police sirens or jackhammers going off in the background, that can interrupt the flow of what you're doing or make it harder to convey your story. So it's something to be very conscious of. Then again, after that, after you've captured this story, there's the editorial process, which is kind of half the work, and it's something just like learning how to go use that camera and to take good pictures, capture good sound. It's helpful to learn a little bit about whether you're using iMovie on your phone or an app that helps you construct this story, to learn how that works a little bit. And of course, there's no better way to learn it than doing. Our good friend and fellow ADE, Rich Colosi, has lent me some footage from his classroom to kind of illustrate how that story editing breaks down. So we've got 3 clips here. This is a little video that Rich in his classroom produced a few years ago. And what we're going to do is we're going to play through the 3 of these and see how this develops. So the first thing we need to do is just capture this story. So you can see in this image, we've got our interview subject. We've got him in an environment that gives us a good idea that he's in the classroom. And let me just play this for you.
We've been making podcasts, and I really like making podcasts with my friends, Quinn and Amanda, because they're really good.
All right, pretty eloquent young man, right? It's not that that couldn't be improved, though. This is one of the fun things about this process, is that when you get into editorial, you can really kind of refine how things are done. It's just like editing a paper. What's important? What do you want to keep? What do you want to get rid of, right? And so that was a pretty good statement from this young man, but I think there's some things we could do to improve it. So there's some ums, there's some ahs, and he's kind of scratching at his face a little bit. You can tell he's a little bit nervous on camera. So there's a few edits that get made in this process. We call this removing the rough edges, or the rough edit. And that will give us what results in what we call a radio edit. And what we mean by that is we're working with video in this particular example, but what we're doing right now is cutting for content. What are the things that we want to keep that he says? What do we want to remove? And then what does it look like when we're done? So let's take a look at that.
We've been making podcasts, and I really like making podcasts with my friends because they're really good.
All right, so that's better. The content audio-wise is fantastic, but you'll notice there's a few jump cuts in the video. You can see that there's a lack of continuity in that piece of video, and so we want to refine that a little bit. And one of the important things about this story, and we saw a lot of this in the student example on ice houses, was finding supporting imagery. Whether you record this imagery yourself or you use open educational resources such as Creative Commons to find that imagery that supports your story, there's 2 things this does. One is from a very utilitarian point of view, it covers up your editing, right? The more important thing, though, is it helps reinforce the message. We saw a lot of great diagrams about ice houses in the student example, and as the subject began talking about the technical minutia of how those ice houses worked, our students found some supporting diagrams to show what was being said, a bit of show and tell, if you will. So here's Rich's student's finished piece. Let's take a look at this.
We've been making podcasts, and I really like making podcasts with my friends because they're really good.
All right, so we can see that some supporting visuals have been added to that. Music has been added to that. You could perhaps add some graphics or text on screen. And again, a lot of that is dependent on getting familiar with the software or the app that you're using, and we will get to those in a minute, I promise. Ultimately, I think one of the things that's really important to think about when you're working with digital storytelling is no matter how big the idea, it's important to think about telling these or explaining these big ideas with small stories. Large complex situations can be very difficult to boil down in a 3 to 5 minute video. However, small stories can really help you explain those big ideas with personal perspective. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to pull up just a few minutes of a piece we did a few years ago after the Deepwater Horizon oil spill. So part of what was happening with this was we wanted to explain to students the conflict in the fishing and oil environments in New Orleans and give it a personal edge. So we could kind of take this very complex economic issue and give it a human face that helps students relate to it. So I'm going to play just a couple of minutes of this one.
When it happened, obviously it's tragic because the first thing lost a life, you know. And when it fell in the water, I saw that. When I saw that fall in the water after the explosion, it was a day or two later, I said, "There's nothing good can come from this." And I was surprised it took a week for people to start moving.
Here we are at day, what is it, day 56? You know, 8 weeks into this deal, and it's still flowing. You're wondering if they really want to actually, BP wants to actually stop the leak.
This was going to be the year. It's been going like this, and this was going to be the year. They had a good crop of shrimp. The price of shrimp was good. You know, you just get to a point where, you know how Popeye said, enough's enough, so I can't take it no more? Yeah. That's how it is right now. I'm at the point right now. You know, did I do good or did I do bad coming back in the business? At this point right now, I don't really think I made it want to.
So why did you do it?
It's in my blood. I've been doing it all my life. You know, I'm 65. I've been doing this commercially. I've been on a boat all my life since I'm 5 years old. You know, once it's in your blood, you get a taste. You know, that's what they keep talking about is heritage. You know, your grandpa did it, your daddy did it, your uncle did it, your brother did it. Everybody, it's just in your blood. You know, you just can't get out of it. Every minute I get, I'm out of the boat.
All right, so that's chapter 1 of that story. Obviously, there's a lot more to that story, but you can see how those personal perspectives help give some insight into what are the bigger issues that's going on down there. Okay, this is an app video, right? So let's talk about the apps that you can use to do digital storytelling kind of right out of the box. So first of all, I don't know about you or whoever is watching this, I think the camera on my iPhone is the app that I use the most on it, even more than the phone or email or Safari. There's a storytelling tool right in your pocket if you've got a smartphone. And iMovie, which is not a native app but easy to obtain through the App Store, is an incredibly powerful tool for editing and delivering video directly from your iOS device. A third one that we use a lot is Voice Recorder, which is really actually a professional level audio recorder. And it's really easy to find microphones that you can plug right into your iPhone, or, as many of my students have done, they've used the voice recorder and just stuck it right up to the talent to get those narratives, the interviews, the actualities that we talked about earlier to incorporate into a larger project. A couple of relatively new apps on the market that I'd like to talk about as well are, one's called Videolicious, the next is Storehouse. I have a couple of demo videos from those I'd like to play for you. And these are new out in the last year. They're very powerful iOS apps that are very easy to use. So Videolicious is, well, as you'll see from the video demo, a very simple storyboarding, recording, and delivery app where a student will record a narration, select video and images from the camera roll on their iOS device, and basically just tap to edit. So let's go ahead and I'm going to move over and play you the quick demo of that.
Videolicious is video made easy. Just talk and tap to make a perfect video.
We're set up here in an incredible New York City hotel. The view from the 77th floor is amazing. We're set up here in an incredible New York City hotel. The view from the 77th floor is amazing.
All new music tracks. Swipe your finger for the perfect mix. Instant preview with instant filters to get a cinematic look.
We're set up here in an incredible New York City hotel. The view from the 77th floor is amazing.
Business users can have their logo added to every video automatically. One-touch publishing to all of your networks, and your video is ready for the world.
So that's a fairly simple example, and it's a fairly simple application. I think one of the things that's interesting about Videolicious is that it works in real time. So basically, as the video indicated, you'll have a script, you'll sit there and read it to your iPhone, and as you're reading it, you will sit there and kind of tap the images that you want to be your supporting imagery. It is far and away the most fundamental and basic video editor I have ever seen, and it's highly effective. Actually, CNN is using this. So, you know, if the funny thing is, I think students probably do a better job than CNN reporters do, but that's a whole other thing. So, a really great free app that is just super easy in terms of entry to use. And what's nice about that is it forces your students to think about their content and their story, not getting hung up on what are the mechanics of this and what software do I have to learn. Along those lines, another really cool platform is called Storehouse. Storehouse is actually more than just an app. I'll play this video in a second. Storehouse is a platform for capturing content and editing content and formatting content. So actually, not really for capturing, I lied about that. What you would do with this is kind of get your material together, and then it gives you layout options, things like that. So let's just take a look at what Storehouse has to say about their new app.
Great stories are all around you. With Storehouse, it's easy to create a beautiful story right from your iPad. Combining your images, videos, and text should be seamless and fun. Editing and publishing is effortless, so you can focus on what matters most, the story. Beautiful stories wherever you are.
So one of the things I like about Storehouse is it's really great for students. And the reason I think it's great for students is because, again, it allows you to focus on content gathering, what are my ideas here, and gives you a very kind of sophisticated and elegant platform for publishing while not having to think too much about the formatting. Storehouse, the app, is just a great magazine to read on your iOS device. It also outputs everything you create on that platform to a web page. You can see here's one on an ASL, American Sign Language class for families. And so this is about this class. There's video involved, there's sign language involved. You can have audio in this. And this one doesn't have a lot of text, but there are a lot of great stories up on Storehouse in education already. We have one, Women's Fashion in the 20s, and this is all open education resources that this was created with in terms of imagery. But you can see how the imagery is kind of nicely juxtaposed with this basic report that was done. There's no video in here, but it still makes it a really interesting and engaging story because the student took the time to kind of think about what are the images that reinforce this. They got deeper into their research with visual assets. Really, really cool stuff going on with that application. So, with that being said, that is all I have for you today, Mike. If you have any questions for me, you can email me, stace@virginia.edu. Our website is universityvisual.com. And I'm going to see now if I can tab over and continue our conversation in this Google Hangout. There you are. Am I still with you, Mike?
Yes, you are. There. Now I see you. Very good. Hopefully you can hear me, Stace. I think I know by and large I got a lot of great tips and ideas out of this. I think really getting your kids to think about the story, and I love that NPR has such great content. You always wonder how do they make such great stories, and it's nice to see that you shared that formula, and I think that's easily translatable to young elementary kids with iPads to college students like you work with that have all kinds of devices and equipment at their disposal. And I think a lot's to be said as well with you use what you have available, and I think you very much probably have that with philosophy with your own students, whether it be a phone or if you have a camera. A lot of times in our schools, and a lot of the content that we focus here on Apatic is with the iPad, which of course will run all of these, and is a great device to edit on because you have that larger screen and so on.
Yeah.
And there's a number of other. iMovie is a fantastic editor, but there's a number of other apps. I know, Pinnacle makes some great editing apps that have some multi-channel options and some other things. So that may be something else that I don't know if any of your students have done any work with that, but I would just kind of put it out there to the audience listening that that's another great tool to compose. But I love Storehouse. What a cool app!
It's an amazing platform, and to your point, Mike, I think one of the things that's really cool about this as an educational process is you can start with anything. You really can. And what I found with a majority of my students is what we try and do is really limit the technology part of it. Say, okay, you've got these simple tools, start with those. And as they get deeper into the process, they want to do more with it, which is kind of what we want in every aspect of education is like, can I get them hooked and can I get them going under their own steam on this whole thing? And it opens up a whole new world to them. And as you said, there are so many apps. I wish I could have covered dozens more. But I have no doubt that you're going to have a category on the Apatic website that'll help people find just the right thing for them.
Oh, absolutely. We already have digital storytelling lists and so on. And which reminds me, we will, of course, here in the near future, we'll have a page up for you, Stace, to put some of your resources.
Great.
You want to share your slide deck. I'm sure people would love to take a look at that. And obviously, your contact details will list there as well, so folks can reach out to you and get in touch with you as we move ahead with stuff. So I think with that, we will wrap it up here. I'm so glad that I had a chance to sit down with you, Stace, and sharing such awesome content with us. It was a real pleasure. So hopefully you enjoyed it as well. And any closing thoughts before
Always
we wrap
nice
up?
to hang out with you, Mike.
Thanks, Stace.
I think the only closing thought would be just get out there and do this. Don't be intimidated by the technology, but if you've got an iPhone in your pocket, you've got the tools to do it already. Awesome.
Great closing comments. Great thoughts. All right, and with that, thanks again, Stace, and we will be back here on the Apatic webcast in the fall. We're going to sign off for the summer, of course. So tune in September, and we'll have another great guest on and another great topic. So until then, we will see you next time.
Have a great